Spatz here, and welcome to our second episode of Fly Time with Spatz, the Chattahoochee Flies edition. So today we're actually going to do probably one of my favorite flies on the hooch, and one of the most versatile flies really in the world. This is the woolly booger. Very simple pattern, great pattern to start learning how to tie with as well. So what we're going to start out with here is I've got a mustag hook. It's a size 8, R74 9672. So R74-9672. Like I said before, as a beginner, this doesn't mean a lot to you, but basically what it is a longer shaft, or a lot longer shank. So it's called like a 4X long, and it's a little bit wider gap as well on the hook. Now you'll notice that the way I put it on my vise is a little different than you've probably ever been taught or told how to do it before, as the whole point of the hook is actually in the vise. I actually learned this from a guy out there while fishing on the Soho. I'm out in Tennessee, and he told me, he's like, you know, why risk having the hook out when you have enough space here anyways, and risk shredding your line? It's true. So why do it? You know, so I've got myself set up here. I've got a cone head on here, a little gold cone head. Now, like I said before, like back with the zebra midge, colors, pick your own colors. Sometimes you want a silver bead, sometimes a black bead, whatever. You know, you get to choose. The woolly booger is very versatile. What we're going to be tying today is an olive colored woolly booger. So, even though I have a cone on, I like to add a little bit of extra weight in on my woolly booger. So what I'm going to do is actually put on a wrap of this lead wire. This is actually a pretty heavy gauge here. It's .030 gauge. So I'm just going to get a little bit of this and just kind of break it off there. Now, if you notice, I'm putting this on before I ever tie the thread on. It's not necessary to have the thread on first. What I'll do is I'll just make a couple coils here, down here at the end. That looks about good enough right there. Maybe one or two more. There you go. Just kind of pinch that off. There we go. And pull that one off. Pinch that little tip off there. There we go. And then I'll push it up into the cone to get it nice and snug. Now, that's just a little longer than what I like. I want it to cover about the front third. The thing is you don't want to have too much lead on your shank. If you have too much lead on it, what's going to happen is when the woolly booger falls in the water, it's going to go down evenly instead of head first. You want to make sure these things are front heavy, because you want it to swim in the water. You don't want it just to go down like this. So you need it to go head first. So you really want that front to be strong. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this in. The thread we're going to use today is an olive 80 thread. I actually picked this up from Alfred Outfitters. One day I stopped up there. It's an Orvis thread. It's actually really good quality. I've been pretty happy with it here. So I'm going to tie it in like I normally would. Just kind of overlapping what I've got. And while I'm tying it in here, I'm actually going through the grooves of that lead wrap as well. And I'm going to go back over one more time here. And it actually secures that lead into place. Now at this point, I can trim this out here. There we go. And then let's just go ahead and bring this thread back towards the bend of the hook. So let's go all the way down here. Alright, we're right there at the bend. And at this point, I'm going to start attaching materials to my woolly booger. The first part that we're going to attach on is the tail. The tail is actually made from marabou. Marabou is a very, very fluffy feather-like material, right? This is olive. It comes in all different colors, an assortment of colors. Go by the fish hawk, their wall's covered in any color you could ever think of. Here, so I'm going to go through here and just pick out a couple tips that look pretty nice. Like right here's a nice looking feather right there, right? So I'm going to pull that off here. There we go. And I'm going to just kind of trim off the back. There we go. Now, if you notice, marabou is very fluffy. It's tough to work with. It's a very, very fluffy material. So what you can do is you can actually wet the marabou. I've got a cup of water over here. Just kind of wet my fingers and just kind of rub my fingers over it. Now, if you take a look, that marabou that was all crazy looking is now very, very neat. It also gives you a good idea of what your tail is going to end up looking like. Well, when I tie this in, I want it to be about the same length as the shank of the hook. So from the tip down to right where it begins to bend is about what I'm going to go for. So that's about right. It's a little bit longer, but that's good enough. So I'm going to set it there where it's in that point there. And I'm going to take my left hand, my thumb, and I'm going to pull here, and my index forefinger, I'm going to pull here. So now it's into position on top of the hook. With my thread, I'm going to take my thread over top and actually put it between my two fingers, my thumb and my forefinger. Now I'm going to pull down quickly. Just like that, just a nice snug one. I'm going to do that 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Now that actually seals that into position pretty nicely there. I'm on top of the hook, I'm not under it, and I'm not past the bend. If you tie it so that it goes underneath the hook and past the bend, your tail will begin to wrap under the hook while you're actually fishing it. So let's go ahead and trim off this excessive amount right here. There we go. Very nice, right? I'm going to give it just one more secure little wrap there. Okay. So now I'm feeling pretty good about it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tie in the pieces that will make up the body of your woolly booger. The body of the woolly booger is really only made up of 2 parts. Okay. The first part is going to be the hackle. Now the hackle I'm going to be using is this right here. This is an olive colored bugger pack. It comes out of a bugger pack. It's basically, you can get this off of a saddle or a cape as well. It's just it's not as high grade as a saddle hackle that you do the necks of a dry fly, but it's really good. You see the back of it's very wide, the front's kind of thinner there, right? That's one part, and the next part is going to be chenille right here. This is actually what the body is. It's almost like a yarn. Now this is actually called micro chenille. It's a little bit thinner, but I like it. It's a little bit more durable to me than regular chenille, but this is going to be your other part. So when you tie everything on, the first thing you want to tie on to the back is going to be the last thing that you're going to want to wrap forward. So just to clarify what that means, I'll be able to show you here in a second. But bear with me for now. So the last thing I'm going to want to wrap forward is going to be this hackle. Now as you can see, it's fat on this side and it's skinny on this side. You actually want most of the hackle, the longer threads, to the front, so we're going to tie in the skinny side to the back first. Okay? So to do this, I'm going to kind of pull them back just so they can separate them out a little bit. Let me just trim this front off. Alright, and then you just kind of cut these down just a little so they aren't too spiky. But then you put them in here, and I'm going to do the same pinch move to seal this in. Alright, so 1, 2, 3. Now that's tied in. Good. Okay? Now, I'm going to put some, being that I'm fishing on the Chattahoochee, some of the fish like a little bit of flash. So, I'm actually going to put a little bit of tinsel on mine as well. Alright? Now, the tinsel that I'm going to do, I'm going to just do a regular piece of tinsel. You can choose any kind of flash that you really want. But what I'm going to do is what I call my lateral lines. I'm going to make 2 lateral lines, one on each side of the fly. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces about this length here. Now I'm going to do the same way. I'm going to start with the one on your side, and I'm going to pinch it into place where I want it here, and just go 1, 2 wraps, right? Just 2 for now. Well, you know what? It looked a little loose there, so why not add a 3rd? Okay, so now that's it. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side, on my side here, and put another little piece in here. There we go. Alright, so now the lateral lines are in place. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and cut out about 5 inches of chenille, 5 to 6 inches here. Alright? With chenille, I'd say when you make your cuts, make it to the back of your, this one's got a little knot in it there. Sometimes you'll come across that. Do the cut to the back of your scissors, just so that it doesn't wear them out, because it's a little bit thicker. And then when I align my chenille up to tie it in, I want to make sure that I have this piece go all the way up to where my lead starts, because this way it's going to end up making the front and the back the exact same girth. So when I wrap things, it doesn't look skinny in the back and fat in the front. So I'm going to tie it in with the pinch move like I did before. Alright, there we go. And I'm just going to work my line all the way up to the front. and I'm just going to work the line back up to the bead here. So, remember how I said the last thing that you tie in is going to be the first thing that you wrap? Well, the chenille is the last thing I tied in, right? So it's going to be the first thing I'm going to wrap. This is to make the body. The chenille is going to be your body, so you're going to wrap it in a cylinder all the way around to the front. You're making the body of your bugger right now. You can double wrap if you'd like. It's completely up to you. It doesn't have to be perfect. And there we go. That looks good. And that's one of the nice things about the woolly bugger. You know, you can, no matter, like you can make an ugly bugger and it's still going to catch fish. So, you know, beginner or expert, buggers can be ugly. They're going to catch fish. Now, you're going to want to trim this piece off. Whenever you're trimming pieces, you want to make sure you are trimming up, because your line's right here. You need to make sure you're cutting back here. Because if you cut here and you cut your line, well, you've got to fix that. Alright, so now we've got that in. Now I want to do my lateral line, which was my second thing I tied in. So I'm going to just line this across here, kind of use the little pinch method again, pull it in nice and tight. Alright, let's see how that looks. That looks straight enough there. Maybe right about there, we'll see. And I'm just going to do one more wrap on that. Alright, so that looks about good there for me. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. There we go. Now I got my lateral lines in there. I'm going to trim those as well. So let's just get this nice and close here. There we go. And there we go. Okay. So now this is our body. You just want to make sure those lateral lines are nice and straight. It's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to have a little flash behind your hackle. Now we got our hackle here. So let's go ahead and get these hackle feathers standing out nicely. There we go. Now when you turn these, you kind of want to make sure that you're kind of pulling the feathers back towards the tail while you're lining them up, because you don't want to overlap your feathers, because this is going to be what makes kind of the legs, the buggy looking of the fly. So just kind of point them all backwards towards the back while you're doing this, so that it doesn't overlap each other. Now this is wrapping it just like you would the wire on that zebra midge. You know, just keep them nice, evenly spaced, and go work your way all the way up to the front. There we go. And I'm going to wrap it all the way up to my cone here. And I'm going to do one last wrap actually through the middle of the cone. Once I do this, I'm going to take this in my right hand, I'm going to pull my line over, and then I'm just going to drop it like that over the side. Give it a good snug pull. Now I know it's in there, and I'll do one more good wrap. Alright, at this point, I want to trim this off here, right? So let's make sure we do it at the top so we don't cut ourselves off. There we go. I just trimmed that off. Now, let's go just one more good wrap there. There we go. Now, it is time to tie your woolly booger off. So go ahead and grab your wet finisher, give yourself a little bit of extra line here, and then work with that here. And go 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to go ahead and do that fourth one right there, and just pull it tight. Now when you pull it tight, you're going to see that the knot actually goes back behind the hook, so you don't see any string in there. Get that nice and close. Use the tip of your scissors and get nice and close in there, and trim that line off. Now this is your woolly booger. Now if you notice, I made sure that whenever I tied things into the top, I only did 2 to 3, wraps for the most part. The reason why is, if you sit there and you wrap and wrap and wrap, you're going to crowd this front. And if you can take a look, all of my woolly booger hairs, like the little hackle furs, they run right up to there. If you don't, you end up with a really nasty thread line in there. It just doesn't look pretty. But this is the woolly booger. This is my favorite Chattahoochee woolly booger right here. You can fish it many different ways, alright? So, first strategy is to use the dead drift. You can tie this on, use it as an anchor fly. This thing's heavy, right? And then you can drop off your favorite nymph, put it on the indicator, cast downstream, and just let it drift. Fish will take this. The other thing is it gets your other fly down really quick in the strike zone. So a lot of times a fish will see this and maybe not hit it, but it makes them a little hungry, like they get stimulated. So then they bite your other string just like that, and bam, fish on, right? So the other way, of course, is to kind of give it a little jiggle during the dead drift, just give it a little bit of life, because this marabou really flows nicely in water, right? And just kind of gives it a little bit of life there. The other way is, of course, to take off an indicator, just throw it out, no drop or anything, and strip it back towards you, swing it, whatever. Very versatile fly. Make it in all colors. You can add legs to it. You can do silver beads, you know, beads, not cones. You can put eyes, whatever you like. Make it however you want. This is a great versatile fly. Well, thank you guys for joining me for the second episode, and I look forward to seeing y'all later. Have a good one.